Welcome back, everybody, to Doctor Who, a podcast in space and time. I'm Holden B. Huffman, and this is...
No coffee?
And today we are discussing Season 1, Episode 8, Father's Day. So, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, so actually before we get into the episode, I did want to just mention one point. I was listening back to the episode Dalek, and so during that episode we kind of got into a discussion about sort of like the parallels between like Nazis and Daleks, and I feel like we maybe weren't quite like clear on our point with that, so I kind of wanted to like muddy the waters a little bit, because I know Nazis are kind of a touchy subject for very obvious reasons,
right.
So I think what we were trying to get at, and we kind of got at it in a very roundabout way, was that like, so ideologically there's a big similarity between Nazis and Daleks. Like there's this ideology.
Even Peter Capaldi said in an interview they're 100% based off of them.
Yeah, like it's a very clear connection. Like we see this idea in both of like racial purity, and this idea that there is like a superior race that is
right
above others, and like any inferior races are to be either like enslaved or destroyed. Like that's that's very obvious with both the Daleks and the Nazis,
right?
And obviously both of those groups like do horrible things in pursuit of that kind of ideology. And I think what we also tried to kind of get at was that like, while they are ideologically similar, the big difference there is that Nazis, like, they did the things that they did because they subscribed to this ideology, sort of like, you had Hitler, and you had him saying these things, and you had people listening to these things and saying, yeah, that seems like something I can get behind.
Right.
Or, they were soldiers that enlisted in the army, and like it ended up, when the war started, and they had like very like they did the things they did because they had subscribed to this ideology, basically, whereas the Daleks were literally like created to have this ideology within them. That was
right.
like their purpose in being created by Davros. And I think that's like kind of the point we were trying to get to, was like they're similar ideologically and like in some of their actions, but they're different in that, like, one were like people who like made these choices to do these things, and the others were created creatures that were literally created to do these things.
Right.
So I just wanted to like, sort of clear the waters there, because I think when we were talking about it, like we were kind of understanding what each other was saying, but I don't know if we got the point across like very clearly.
Okay, yeah, no, that's totally fine. You're more than welcome to do that. It's your show too.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say it before, like we had people sort of not understanding where we were coming from with that. Like I want to be clear about like things that are like real world issues. I want to be clear about those.
Yeah, definitely. I totally understand that.
So yeah, let's get into the episode then. I think it's a good episode. I really enjoy this one. I really like it as kind of its own. Again, it's almost like a self-contained story, but it's also, I mean, this is what the season has been building up to. With Rose,
right?
We've seen her whole story kind of almost triangulating upon this point,
right? Because like the Doctor, where is it? Okay, the Doctor said, like, when I asked you to come with me, you said no. Then I said time machine. And Rose is like, it's not like it was some plan. I'm like, yes, it was. Because like in the Unquite Dead, it's mentioned about her father. What's her name? I can't remember her name. The girl.
Oh, hold on. I've
The
got
girl
it in my notes somewhere.
the girl who lived on the rift. What's her name?
Gwyneth.
Gwyneth. Yeah. Gwyneth. Like she said, you've been thinking of your father a lot lately, haven't you? More than usual. Like that's a pure like, yeah, she's planning on this.
See, I don't know that she was planning this specifically because like I think the reason maybe she didn't have it like all planned out, and maybe she had, I mean, maybe she had some idea in her mind that like that this was possible, but the first round through here, you know, they go the first time and they watch, you know, Peter get hit by the car and him pass away on the street, and Rose doesn't do anything.
Right.
And I think in that moment she was going to just like leave it at that. I think she was still unsure what she was going to do. But you know, after she saw, like literally saw him die right in front of her, that's when she decided, no, like I have to stop this.
Right.
I think like maybe she had it in her head that like it was possible to save him, but like, I don't think she really decided she was going to do it until she like actually saw him die.
Right. That is a good point. That is very possible.
Yeah, and I don't know. I thought going into this I was going to be like not very much on Rose's side, but I get it. Like I really get it.
I do too. I do understand why Rose did it. Was it the right thing? No.
No, obviously
but
not,
I can understand why she would want to do this.
Yeah, she made a very like poor choice, but it was a very human choice. It was a very, and it was
right.
I mean, it wasn't motivated by self-interest. It was motivated by, you know, by love for her father. So like, I don't know. I really like, I don't love Rose every episode, but I really sympathize with Rose a lot in this episode, and I really understand where she's coming from.
I do too. Like I've said in the past, I don't really like Rose. Like I don't hate her, but I don't particularly like her. Like this is one of those episodes where I'm conflicted on that. It's like she's okay, but her decisions are not.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know that we've gotten really specifically into the main issue with Rose. I think the main issue with Rose is that like she tends to do a lot of things that are self-serving and not really take others' feelings into considerations, particularly like with Mickey, and you know, sometimes with her mom, sometimes with the doctor.
Right. Well, I feel like we haven't really gotten into those issues yet is because we're not there yet. There are more episodes in the future that really particularly get to that issue, and we just haven't gotten to them yet.
Right, yeah. But I mean, even in the episodes we've seen like so far, it's kind of an issue we see.
Right.
You know, her I mean, she does like really just kind of like ditch Mickey at the beginning, and she runs off without really telling her mom what's happening. And
yeah, and then they just so happen to come back a year later by mistake, and there's the consequences for that.
Right, yeah. But I think I don't know, in this episode I really don't see that self-serving side of her being her motivating factor. I think like she really is motivated by, you know, by like love for her father in this episode. Which I don't know, like maybe you could argue that she is being kind of self-serving because like she's literally never known her father, so how could, I mean, it's hard to love someone you've never really known.
Right. But you got to also remember her mom has built up her dad so much. like
Yeah.
this is the most wonderful man ever. And then and like that's a big moment in the episode when she realizes he's not who she thought he was.
Yeah, and I really liked that. I really liked that we kind of saw that facade kind of being torn away between like this
Mm-hmm.
sort of mythical father that she thought she knew and the real man who existed.
Right.
Um and I don't know, I really enjoyed too Pete's whole journey throughout the episode.
Oh yeah, no, he was great. Pete was great.
Yeah, I had the thought like during the episode that he would have made a great companion because
Yeah.
he picked up on the sort of time travel shenanigans, what was happening there pretty quickly.
Right.
He figured out that Rose was his daughter, which that's kind of a huge leap to make, but
Mm-hmm.
I think he was very clever to kind of put those pieces together and say, oh, of course.
Yeah.
And then later in the episode when he kind of realizes what he has to do to fix everything, I think we get a really great moment of just a great moment of acting from, I'm not sure who the actor is, but his when he's looking out the window and watching the car like pass by,
Mm-hmm.
and you can just see his thought processes
Right.
like
Yeah,
all
no,
over his face.
that was some really good acting.
Yeah, like he didn't say anything. There was no dialogue to that. You could just tell like he knew what had gone wrong and what he needed to do to fix it. And then
Right.
you see him go through like the resolve of, okay, I'm literally going to run out in front of this car to save the world.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a great moment.
Mm-hmm. And a good character arc for him, for like, because like in the beginning we realize he's not really who he is. He's kind of sleazy, not
Yeah.
responsible.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, because Rose had kind of built him up to be this like really kind of flawless family man.
Right, and that's not her fault. That's Jackie's fault.
Right, yeah. That was what Jackie presented because she wanted Rose to have
Mm-hmm.
the father she never had, but I think also in a way, I think she wanted Rose to have the father that Pete never could have been.
Right, yeah, I wrote that down. Rose needed a proper father, so she made him one.
Yeah. And when Rose and Pete are having that conversation before, when Pete realized that he wasn't supposed to be there, he wasn't supposed to have survived that. Rose is talking about him taking them on picnics and him always being there for her, and he realizes in that moment, and he even says it, he says, that's not me, that's
Right.
not who I am. Which I thought, again, another great moment of just another great character moment.
Yes,
and him
definitely.
really being honest with himself and with Rose for the first time in the episode, because up to that point he kind of, anytime he was anytime
Flirting with
anybody's
her?
well, that but also like anytime someone would say something negative about him, about his failed businesses or his his flirting with other women, like he kind of deflected it and almost tried to keep up the same facade that Jackie tried to keep up, that he was this brilliant man.
Right.
But in that moment we see him finally admit, no, I'm not perfect. I'm not the person that you think I am.
Right. It's such a beautiful moment.
Yeah, a lot of really good moments.
Okay, the one of the beginning scenes, when Jackie and Pete are getting married, I had the strangest feeling that was a shotgun wedding.
Okay. Yeah. It kind of did feel that way.
Because like Jackie's just like, oh, get on with it.
Especially considering Pete didn't even know her full name.
Right.
It was like he was learning her full name there at in the middle of the wedding.
Yep.
Uh,
Also, can we just
um,
talk about the rage and the fury in the doctor's eyes after Rose saves Pete?
oh yeah, a lot of great acting from uh,
Eccleston.
Eccleston. Thank you. Um, yeah, it's just a lot, and he's very good at conveying so much without really saying anything, like just with
Mm-hmm.
his looks, his demeanor.
Mm-hmm. And like,
Um,
along with the silent treatment, like the camera just kept going back to him, and he's just staring at her, not saying a word.
yeah,
Like that was a really good moment.
and I enjoyed too when he sort of brought up the comparison, like between about him like not or between him not going back and stopping the time war,
Mm-hmm.
um, and what she was doing at the time, saving her father. I thought that was a great.
Yeah, that's a really good comparison of like why he couldn't go back.
Yeah, and I think there was definitely some like resentment there with him, like saying, almost saying like why do you feel like it's right for you to do what I never chose to do?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And
because
maybe a tad bit of jealousy, you think?
I think probably so. Yeah,
Like you were able to get your father back that easily. But me, I have no one.
yeah, and I
Like,
think
and also like he had like you have Jackie, your mother, you have Mickey, you have all these people. I have no
mhm.
one.
Yeah, for sure, and obviously he knows the consequences. He knows what would happen
Right.
if he were to try to go back and stop it. We see in this
Mm-hmm.
episode what happens. But I think still, like, yeah, there's definitely, I think, some sense of jealousy there.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was very nice, but also very doctor-y that the doctor knew what needed to be done to fix things the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Pete maybe mentioned that.
He did. He did near when he was putting his jacket back on when he was about to go out and throw himself in front of the car.
Yeah, but like, yeah, of
The
course,
doctor figured it out a long time ago, but he was trying to spare me and you from that again.
yeah, and I thought that was very good and very doctory. That's a very doctory thing to do,
Mm-hmm.
to like try to defy time itself, for the sake of someone you love. And like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, um, he loves his companions. He loves Rose.
Right.
He just loves people, and I think after he met Pete, like I think he loves Pete. Like he's the doctor. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's the doctor is someone who's going to love people and fight for people,
Right.
regardless of who they are or whether or not they should exist.
Mm-hmm.
And there were several really good lines from the doctor, talking about just like the importance of people.
Yes, I wrote that down. You two, street corner 3 a.m, getting a taxi. I've never had a life like that.
Yeah. Yeah, this was after they said they weren't important, and the doctor's like, "Who said you're not important?"
Mm-hmm.
And that's, um, and then another one. Oh, this was after Rose saves her dad, and she's trying to kind of justify herself, saying like, "I didn't. It's not like I saved someone important." And the doctor says, "An ordinary man. That's the most important thing in creation."
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, I mean, really kind of what this episode is about in a way, is just the importance of one person.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And we'll see a lot more Doctor Who episodes down the line that are kind of about the same thing. But I think this
Yeah,
is a
there's
really...
there's one in particular I'm thinking about, and I think you're thinking about it too.
Yeah. But it's, I don't know. I think it's a big theme in Doctor Who that we kind of really start to see with this episode.
Right. Can we just mention that we got rickrolled?
We did get rickrolled in this episode, which this would have been definitely before rickrolling was a thing, right?
It definitely, yeah. I don't know. This is 2005.
Hold on. We're going to find out.
Okay. Well, while you find out, I'm going to talk about Jackie's perm.
Let's talk about Jackie's perm.
Yeah, Jackie's perm was just very permish.
It was very
big and fluffy.
And that's one thing I really enjoyed about this episode, was that, okay, 2006 was when the Rickroll started.
So yeah, this was before the Rickroll.
So this was like ahead of the game on the Rickroll.
Yep.
Yeah, I really enjoyed just like the subtle 80s vibe of this episode.
Right. It wasn't something like Stranger Things or say even Ready Player One.
Yeah, and you know, like I like Stranger Things, but it's very in your face with the 80s references, you know. And this one you didn't really get much of that. I mean, I guess Rick Astley would have been like, I don't know, I guess that would have been a bigger 80s reference, but
yeah.
Otherwise, you know, it was very it was a background element to the story, and it framed the story nicely, and it made it convincingly fit within that time period. But it wasn't in your face, and it wasn't really like playing off of nostalgia, which this was way before the big 80s nostalgia craze started.
Right.
I mean, they were only like, you know, barely like 15 years out from the 80s, but
right.
Yeah, but I liked how they handled the setting. I thought it was very well done.
A brief off-topic thing about Stranger Things. In season 3 of Stranger Things, the scene where Dustin comes back from camp and like 11 moves all the toys around and everything. There's one toy in there that's historically inaccurate. It's a Transformer. It's a Generation 1 Transformer. And Kendall, you know me and my Transformers. This season took place in the summer of 1985. It's impossible for that Transformer to have been there. That Transformer wasn't released until 1986.
That's right, Stranger Things. Eat it. You got it wrong, boy. Do better next time.
Sorry, that's the Transformer nerd in me coming out.
You think you're for the nerds? You can't even get the Transformers right. Come on.
Sorry. Okay, back to Doctor
Anyway, thanks for listening to our Stranger Things podcast, where we point out all the historical inaccuracies in Stranger Things.
Yeah, there's a podcast.
Anyway, back to Doctor Who.
Yeah. The Doctor was totally going to leave Rose there.
Yeah, he probably thought about it.
No, he was. He went to the TARDIS. And he opened up the TARDIS. Only reason he didn't leave was because there was no interior. I'm telling you, because as soon as he saw no interior, he went running back.
Yeah. I think he probably would have I think he probably would have like felt bad about it and come back, but I think he might have left her for a little bit.
Yep. Also, can we talk about Little Mickey?
Little Mickey. The line when Mickey comes up and like hugs Rose, and Jackie's like, "Oh, he clings on to anything that passes," and I was like, "Well, nothing's changed."
And also, that you mentioned the actress playing young Rose was really good. Like, she really looked like a younger Rose.
Yeah, they did a really good job, like finding someone who looks like a young Billie Piper for sure.
Mm-hmm. Which is something Doctor Who is really good at.
Yeah, we'll see some like good examples of that later in the show as well. Let me see.
I had wrote down, yes, Rose, it's all your fault. People are dead because of you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me. It's hard because like obviously Rose couldn't have known the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's not like the Doctor sat Rose down and said, "Hey, if we meddle in time, there's going to be weird bat parasites that are gonna,
It's true. It's very true.
come
He never did that.
kill people." Yeah, and I think that's like something the Doctor tends to be bad at, is really explaining the stakes to the companions. I mean, I think like the Doctor kind of treats traveling through space and time as just, it's going to be this fun, like exciting adventure until something really bad happens.
Right. Well, you also got to remember he's hundreds of years old. He's been doing this a long time.
Right.
He keeps forgetting these people don't know it. It's like something you're good at, and then when you see someone trying it for the first time, you're like, "You idiot! This is so simple."
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, like the Doctor definitely has a bit of a lack of perspective there as far as how humans are going to like react to things, how they're going to think about things. But I don't know. He's been doing this for a long time, and he doesn't really think about it, but he also has been traveling with humans for a very long time as well. So I don't know. In a way, I feel like by this point he should know better.
Right.
He should know, like, this is kind of how humans operate, and maybe I should explain things to them a little better.
Yeah.
So I can't like completely blame Rose or the Doctor in this situation. I think they both are like partially to blame, but obviously it was Rose who made the choice that she made. But in a way, I think like also maybe if the Doctor had laid things out for her, she might not have done it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's very true. That's all I have in the non-spoiler section. I don't know about you.
Let's see. I think my only other like non-spoiler thing was I was going to talk about the creatures, which I think they were a good idea, but the special effects weren't really ready to handle them.
No.
I don't know. They looked pretty rough, which
they did.
I think we've seen some rough special effects up to this point, but I think this is probably like the roughest we've seen so far.
Yeah.
But like counterpoint to that,
all the money went to the Dalek. All the money went to the Dalek.
Yeah, for sure. But like as a counterpoint to that, within this episode, I really liked the effects on the car. I thought like the way it was like phasing in and out through like these.
Yeah, that was
really cool.
That was really good.
Yeah. I think, they did something really cool looking with one, so I guess they had to like make sacrifices with the other. But yeah, that's all I really have though as far as non-spoilers go. So let's get into spoilers.
Spoiler warning. I can't believe
the Doctor Rory dies.
What? I was going to say the Doctor, but
I was going to say Rory.
Okay, because I mean the Doctor actually does die in this one.
The Doctor does like actually die in this episode, and does not regenerate.
No.
Which I guess because they were like time. The Doctor called them bacteria at one point. I guess since they were like time fixing bacteria.
Right, they were sterilizing everything, so I guess that includes him.
Yeah. Which I didn't quite understand that comparison either.
Yeah.
To me,
Because
it would have made
you would think that they would have just come for Pete.
right, right with like a oh, what's the word I'm looking for? With like an antibody. I think antibody was kind of like the idea that they were trying to get across, but an antibody would like specifically attack the like source of the harm. Whereas I think like more of what it looked like was more like an infection, like an infected wound. Um,
Dude,
which I guess is
I got a D in biology. I have no idea.
yeah. I mean, I guess that's why he said bacteria, but that's not really bacteria. Don't really like sterilize a wound. They just
Mhm.
like infect it. Like that's kind of
Mhm.
opposite things.
Right.
So I don't know. It didn't quite like I'm no doctor. I've taken like college level biology, so I can get by, but I
I
don't
mean, I have
really.
two, and like I said, I got a D in it.
Yeah, that one just it didn't quite make sense to me the way he explained it.
Hmm. And in general, the creatures themselves was just kind of messy because we never see them again.
Yeah, we do not see them again within the show, even though we have similar
Situations.
similar situations. I guess we don't exactly have this exact situation again, but you would think later down the line we would see them again, but we never do.
Yeah.
Which it's not a problem in with this episode specifically. I think it's just more of a problem with the way New Who is handled.
Going on after this episode.
Right, because in this episode we kind of get an explanation as to why we haven't seen them before. The Doctor explains that the Time Lords used to
Mhm.
prevent things like this from happening.
Right, and that would explain why we never saw them in the classic series because the Time Lords were there.
Right, so the Time Lords would have fixed things before they came along and
Hmm.
did their thing. But after this episode though, we'd never see him again. There's no mention of them again, and there's really no
Right.
explanation as to why they never return.
Right. Well, I mean, it's the same thing with Chris Chibnall. He just sees something and just goes, screw it. We'll forget that ever happened.
Yeah, but even like within I don't know, even within like the same showrunners
It's true.
work,
Yeah, no, Moffat has done it himself of like, oh, yeah, I forgot I did that. Oh, well.
yeah, and I think like Moffat gets a lot of flack for it, but I don't
Mhm.
know that we see so much flack from Davies for it.
Mhm.
Even though, yeah, Davies does the same thing. I mean, they all do the same thing. Like every showrunner kind of
Yeah.
has things that they kind of forget to bring back up later, or
Right. And that's that's one of my biggest problems with the show is the continuity. Like
yeah,
in some instances, I can understand like if time is rewritten or something.
right. But this is less of a specific event continuity and more
Hmm.
of a specific truth of how the universe works. And it's weird that something like that is just
Hmm.
kind of tossed out the window afterwards.
Right. And I'm like, you could argue to say the Day of the Doctor is like that, but to be fair, they've been leading up to something like that ever since they started the show back.
Right. Yeah. I think Davies, maybe he didn't exactly have that plan in mind, but um I'm pretty sure the Day of the Doctor wasn't that kind of like something he had kind of had in mind though? Like didn't Moffat kind of talk to him about that and say, hey,
It's possible. I've not read any interviews or seen any interviews about that,
okay.
so I can't say for sure.
Yeah, I want to say I've read that at one point that, Moffat kind of consulted with Davies and said, hey, I know you had this big plan
Mm-hmm.
for, I
Oh,
want to,
oh, I know what that is. I know what you're
you
thinking
know what
of.
I'm talking
I've
about?
read it. Yes, it was with Peter Capaldi
Okay.
because Capaldi appeared both in Doctor Who and Davies eras, and then Torchwood, which was another show Davies made.
Okay.
And like he had a plan for why this person was showing up twice. in the
Okay.
series. That's what it was. And Moffat consulted him on that when Capaldi was cast as the Doctor.
Yeah. I mean, even so, though, like I know we don't necessarily have any like evidence for it, but I could almost see it being the case that like maybe Davies had something like the 50th in mind eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Although I'm sure it would have looked much different than what we saw.
Right. And
yeah, because it really seems to be the arc that the Doctor is like moving towards. Even starting here, we already see the Doctor kind of showing like that both he regrets the Time War, but also has thought about going back and changing it.
Right, and like Matt said in the 50th, I've thought about it for centuries. I changed my mind.
Yeah, so like maybe the 50th wasn't really like, maybe Davies didn't have anything in mind for it or anything in mind for like going back and changing the way the Time War was, but like it was a natural progression of that arc.
Uh-huh.
It felt natural. It didn't feel like just a sudden 180,
Yeah. That's all. That was my only spoiler note.
Yeah, sorry. I know that was a lot of like speculation, and again, we don't really know like what Davies had in mind, but
mm-hmm.
I guess my point is I just think it felt natural instead of feeling like something retconned.
Right.
It felt like it was respectful towards what Davies had written before.
Yeah. And like I know Moffat at one point, like you knew he was gonna, like during like the Forest of the Dead and Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead, like you could tell it was leading up to something with River Song, and like
right.
that's when like Moffat knew that was going to be when Davies knew that was going to be his last season, and Moffat was planning to take over, so Moffat planted seeds towards his.
Yeah, and I really wish we had gotten something like that with Chibnall.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know, like it, we'll get to it later, but
Right,
things Chibnall has done really do feel like that complete 180 that kind of doesn't really connect with anything that came before.
Mm-hmm. And like I like some of I really do like some of Chibnall's episodes in his running.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But there's just some that is just like it completely retcons a ton of stuff. But that's getting way ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that's all for today.
That's all I've got.
Okay, so join us next time for Doctor Who Series 1, Episode 9, The Empty Child, where we meet our favorite side companion, I guess you could call that person.
You know what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's Captain Jack Harkness.
It's Captain Jack Harkness.
Captain Jack Harkness. He's the best. Bye.
See you then.